We do, though, have another theist caller who made it in here. Virginia, in Virginia, Bronzashir wants to talk to us about, well, I don't know. Hey, Virginia, you're on with Nick and Matt.
Hello, good evening.
How you doing?
I'm great. This is my first time tuning in. I was recommended the show by a friend of mine online, and so I just wanted to jump on and talk to you guys. So from what I gathered, both of you are atheists, and
Yes.
so I wanted to know, like, why are you guys atheists? What made you want to do that?
Well, Nick's always been an atheist, and I was a fundamentalist Southern Baptist who was studying to be a preacher when I found out that I didn't have any good reason to believe that the philosophical arguments were flawed or lacking evidential support. And until such time as somebody can present a case supported by evidence for why someone should in fact believe that a God exists, I can't.
Yeah, and I'll jump in on that and say that for me, it wasn't sort of a question of like, oh, I wasn't actually raised as an atheist. It was just that religion was not an important part of my experience growing up, although kind of like ancillary, secondary religious stuff. Like I was in the Boy Scouts. I was very involved in that. I studied, I went to a number of my friends' sort of churches, like you do when you're a, 13, 14-year-old kid and you want to just like hang out with your friends. And hey, they do this fun thing for youth during the week, and it's a great place to hang out with people your own age. And so you go do that. So it wasn't that I wasn't exposed to it. The thing, the framing of your question of like, why did we choose to do that? I think we need to like flip that around a little bit. A lot of people are religious because they were raised in religion. And people should ask themselves, like Matt was just saying, why do you believe this? And until you can answer that question in a way that, shows a lot of convincing evidence that convinces you to believe something that's, pretty extraordinary. And until you can have some good reasons behind that, I think folks should ask themselves, wait, why do I believe this thing? And so what we're advocating is not, necessarily saying I believe there are no gods as much as I'm unconvinced. And, maybe in my certain spicier days, I will say I will make the claim that there is no God. But I think that ultimately it kind of boils down to I'm unconvinced. You can show me some good evidence, then sure, but haven't been shown that evidence yet. And so I live my life in this way because I have all these values that I care about as a humanist and that I've arrived at in a secular way because I've looked at a lot of other religious approaches, a lot of philosophical approaches to morality, to ethics, and that's fine, and those work for me. And like Matt said, we don't want to drop all religious people into this bucket and say, oh, all those people who believe they're dumb or whatever. That's not the case. And in fact, some of our closest partners, the people we rely on, are religious because we recognize that the threats that we deal with here in the U.S. That are coming from Christian nationalism require religious people to push back on and say, wait, I don't want my faith to be used in this way. And then we can have the conversation over drinks later. That's sort of the, hey, have you guys given some thought as to why your faith is so commonly misused in this way? Maybe we should grapple with that a little bit. But we can have that conversation sort of separately from the, oh my God, our democracy is on fire conversation, and we need to do something about that. So there's we can do both. We can walk and chew gum on those. So.
Okay, that's interesting. And so, Nick, you're the one who was raised Southern Baptist, you said? Or am I getting you guys backwards?
No, that's me. Matt.
Okay.
Yeah.
And so, Matt, you were raised Southern Baptist. Now, that's kind of funny because I'm the opposite. So I was raised in the Christian faith. That's the perspective that I'm coming from, is Christianity. Sure. But I was raised non-denom, but as I've gotten older, I've now become very fundamental, independent fundamental Baptist. And so I find it very interesting that that's where you started off, but you decided to change because you felt like there wasn't enough evidence to back up that belief system, while I've come to the exact opposite conclusion. And so what was it about Christianity? for being a fundamental?
Well, I can't believe the supernatural claims of the Bible because I haven't seen evidence, and you're saying you came to the exact opposite conclusion. So what evidence do you have that the supernatural claims of the Bible are correct?
So when it comes to my belief, I believe that you can be a Christian and not necessarily hang on every single word of the Bible. Now, I believe every word of the Bible. But when it comes to being a Christian, it's a matter of believing on Christ. The gospel is separate from the entire Bible.
That's not only not an answer to my question. It's not only not an answer to my question. It completely avoids what you claimed. I don't believe because I haven't seen evidence. And you said you've gone the exact opposite way. So all I asked is, what's the evidence? And then you started saying how you think you can be a Christian without hanging on every word. I'm aware that there's many different ways for people to think they're a Christian. I don't get to decide who's a Christian. I don't think anybody else gets to decide it. There's over 1,000 denominations and they disagree on every single point of doctrine. You said you had evidence, and I just want to know what the evidence is.
Okay. So to be more direct, I believe that the best evidence for Christianity being legitimate is the history that we have of the Bible and the history that we have of the flood. And the evidence for those two things are the most strong proofs for Christianity.
Okay. So first of all, there isn't good scientific evidence of a global flood. That simply didn't happen, and there's been no demonstration that it's possible or that it did happen. But let's just assume for a second that there absolutely, like we could absolutely confirm there was a global flood. How does that confirm Christianity at all?
Well, because Christianity, the Bible teaches that, and not only does it teach that in Genesis, but in the New Testament, it says that in the latter days that men would be scoffers and they would be willingly ignorant of one of the main things being the flood, and that is backed up by what is happening currently. And so not only does the Bible give the story...
If I say that people are going to make fun of me for believing nonsense, and they make fun of me for believing nonsense, that doesn't prove what I believe was true.
Well, if you predicted it several thousand years in advance, and there were other things that could be made fun of.
No. And that's not a prediction. That's not even a remarkable prediction, especially since the Bible was written while people were already scoffing at this. So there isn't scientific evidence to confirm a global flood. But what I was asking was, even if we granted that a global flood occurred, how does that demonstrate the truth of Christianity? Because I don't see how a global flood can in any way demonstrate the truth that God came down, impregnated a virgin in order to give himself human form so that he could sacrifice himself to serve as a loophole for rules that he's in charge of. Where's the evidence that any of that actually happened? Because even if a global flood occurred, or even if a local flood occurred, which is Epic of Gilgamesh, and it's what others have advocated for. Not everybody believes that the flood was covering the whole earth. But even if we had just a local flood, none of that proves Christianity.
Well, that's what I was saying earlier. You were kind of accusing me of beating around the bush, but I was trying to say that you can be a Christian and not necessarily believe everything. And so you can be a Christian and believe what it says about Jesus.
You're back to not presenting the evidence. See, I can't believe unless there's evidence, and I can't believe unless there's evidence, and you can't present evidence.
Well, I said another thing that I believe in is that the history of the Bible, and so the Bible, the clear history that we have. I'm well
aware of the history of the Bible. Words, we have.
Are you?
Do you know who wrote? Oh yeah. Do you know who wrote Matthew, Mark, Luke, or John? No, you don't, because they're all anonymous, and we don't have originals of any of them. And we have copies of translation. They are anonymous. None of those are signed. If you think that the Gospels are signed and that we have originals, you are not in keeping with even the best New Testament scholars within Christianity.
No, of course we don't have the originals, but we don't need the originals because we have copies, and God preserved the copies like he said he would.
You don't get to say that God preserved the copy. You have to prove that God preserved the copy. And without the original, which you don't have, what you have is a copy of a copy of a translation of a copy, and nothing about that shows that it's true. So like if you open up, well, if you open up like I've got an NIV right here, which I could open up to Matthew.
Well, that's a fake Bible.
What does it say about? Sorry, what's that?
I said that's a fake Bible. You got to have a real Bible.
Oh, okay. So you're not real. Somebody had you call in to be a prank caller.
No.
So
I'm genuine.
So you think you think that you're AV 1611 only. So you're only going to go with a flawed translation that was created by a king in order to justify his divorces.
Now that's a myth. See, you're perpetuating
it's not a myth, it's a fact, but
Bible.
It's not a myth. I have more evidence for that than you have for anything that you've uttered yet today. How do you demonstrate that the King James Version AV 1611 is the right one and the NIV is the fake one? But I wasn't even pointing, by the way, to the fake NIV. I was pointing to the cover sheet that's in the NIV that talks about the authorship of the Gospel of Matthew. The Gospel of Matthew's author is unknown, as is the Gospel of Mark and Luke. They are unsigned. This is, you can go to New Testament, you can go to earlychristianwritings.com, you can go to any book on the process of canonization, and any book, you can go to the damn Wikipedia article for each of those Gospels, and it will affirm what I'm telling you, which is that those things were attributed to Matthew, Mark, and Luke, and John as a matter of church tradition. And even if they were all written by the person whose name on them, we don't know what the originals said, and we have no way of showing that what they say, what they claim, is true. When you say that you believe because of evidence, I keep asking for evidence, and you keep avoiding it. Where's the evidence that the Gospel of Matthew, where's the evidence, where I keep cutting you off because you keep deflecting and saying, well, here's something else I believe. Here's something else I believe. I can believe you can be a Christian this. Where's the evidence that what the Gospel of Matthew claims in your AV 1611 Bible is true? Where's the evidence for that?
Okay. The evidence for that is the fact that the whole Bible was written over the course of over 1,500 years. And even in your perspective of saying that, oh, we can't know it's true because we don't have the originals, it still lines up with itself. It was written by over 40 different authors over 3 continents over the course of 1,500 years. And what we have today still matches up with each other. The Old Testament matches up with the New Testament. It all lines up perfectly. There are no contradictions in it. And so what God said in Isaiah, where he said that I will preserve every word.
First of all, I asked what the evidence was that the Gospel of Matthew, in your particular one, is true in what it claims. The fact that books are consistent with each other in broad strokes doesn't mean that any specific claim. Where's the proof that zombies rose up and marched on Jerusalem, as the Gospel of Matthew says? Where's the proof that that happened?
Well, I don't have proof of that happening.
And yet you believe it,
of every single
right?
claim in the Bible.
Do you have proof of any specific? Do you have Do you have proof? Do you have proof of any specific claim in the Bible?
Well, define proof.
Can you demonstrate independently verifiable, objective, empirical evidence to confirm any claim in the Bible?
Yeah, I mean, we have very good evidence for the fact that Jesus died and rose again.
No, you don't even have evidence that Jesus lived, let alone that he died and rose again.
This is disingenuous, because to say that Jesus never
it's not
disingenuous.
It's not disingenuous. I'm sorry that you are ignorant of the scholarship. I'm not saying that Jesus didn't exist. I'm saying, how can you prove that he did?
Because the claims were made during the time when they could have been falsified, and they were not. And he was a
no, the claims could not have been. The claims could not have been falsified, and you have no way of saying when the claims were made, because no first century individual outside of the Gospels speaks about Jesus at all. Nobody seems to know about his life, his ministry. Nobody seems to know about the temple veil. Nobody seems to hear about the zombies marching on Jerusalem. None of that is supported by any first century historian at all. That doesn't mean Jesus didn't exist. But I'm saying, give me a claim for which you have objectively verifiable empirical evidence to support that the claim is true. What's the claim?
The objective verifiable proof is the fact that it says it and it could have been falsified if it were true.
No, I'm sorry. The Bible is the claim. It is not the evidence.
It is the evidence, because to say that
No,
something
it's
else
not.
is,
It's
is
not. It is not the evidence.
It is.
You simply don't understand what evidence is if you think the claim
No.
is the evidence. The Bible is the claim. The Bible is where it says this happens. And if you have evidence that it happened, you present the evidence. You don't present yet another claim. What is the evidence that your claim is correct?
If you would let me finish, then I could explain. Do you want me to explain?
I have given you, stop talking. I have given you multiple opportunities, and all you do is whine about how I'm cutting you off. Present a claim. Present a claim. Present a claim.
The Bible.
Keep talking over me and see how well that's going to work out for you.
What the Bible says.
Guess how much anybody's going to get to hear you if you keep interrupting me. Present a claim.
You claim that
it's my shut. Present a claim and then present the objective. Okay, I'm going to mute you since you can't listen, because your brain is desperately trying to protect you from being embarrassed on live TV. But it's too late. You have been. I would like you to make one claim about something that's supernatural that happened, and the objectively verifiable evidence that supports that claim. That's all I'm asking. I'm going to unmute you. You tell me what supernatural claim you're going to defend, and then you present the objectively verifiable evidence to support that claim, or we're done. What's the claim?
What he's not going to do is that.
The claim?
What he's not going to do is that. The claim is my wife's name is.
I know what your wife's name is. It shows up on the screen. I didn't call her anything other than a name, than her actual name there. I would like to know what claim she's saying and what the actual verifiable objective evidence for it is. That's all I want. Am I going to talk to Virginia or the backup dancer?
How do I leave?
What's that? Oh, you run away. Okay. Did I cut you off that time?